Hey, what's up guys? I'm BTC. Tomorrow, September 19th, we're getting a pretty big update for Overwatch. We're getting the brand new payload map, Junkertown, and in addition to that, also some pretty gigantic balance changes for both D.Va and Mercy. And what I want to talk about today is how these changes to Mercy kind of affect other characters, specifically Orisa, and how it basically makes Orisa's ultimate redundant and not really worth using almost at all. Now, if you haven't seen all of the changes to D.Va and Mercy, I already made a couple of videos about those, so the links for that stuff will be in the description. You can go and check out all the new stuff for those characters. But specifically for this video, I want to talk about Mercy's ultimate, which no longer resurrects people. Instead, it does something completely different than any of the other ultimates in the game. So all the other ultimates will basically do one thing, but they do that one thing really, really good. So if it's like Pharah, it will basically do a ton of damage in a very small area. If it's Zenyatta, it will heal an incredible amount of damage. But with Mercy, her ultimate doesn't just do one thing, it does everything. And because of that, there's a lot of overlap with Orisa's ultimate as well. Alright, so let's start with a quick comparison. Orisa's Supercharger has 200 health and grants a 50% damage amplification to all teammates that are within 25 meters. And the Bongo itself will last for 15 seconds. However, it's really, really easy to destroy. It's a very small, stationary object. It's only got that 200 health that I mentioned, and even when Orisa puts a shield behind it, it very rarely lasts the full 15 seconds. It's almost always going to get destroyed before then. And now for Mercy's new ultimate, Valkyrie. Let me just read you the description real fast. It says, Valkyrie unleashes the full power of Mercy's Valkyrie suit, enhancing her weapons and abilities for 20 seconds. So let's just compare the things that Orisa's ult can do first, and then we'll go into all the extra stuff. So as you probably know, Mercy, the left click will do healing, and the right click will do damage amp. So how does that damage amp compare to what Orisa can do? Well, Mercy's only does 30% extra damage, while Orisa's does 50%. Now, normally when Mercy is just running around, she can only heal or damage amp one ally at a time. But when she's in her ultimate, that beam will chain to other nearby teammates. So you can effectively heal or damage amp your entire team when you're in this Mercy new ult Valkyrie. But also keep in mind, while using her ultimate, the beam can travel much, much farther. I believe it's somewhere around 30 or 40 meters. It's just like a ridiculous distance that this beam can now travel. So if we only compared the damage amp potential, then Orisa's ultimate would be better. But Mercy's ultimate has so much more on top of that. So, one, Mercy is not stationary like the Bongo. So she is significantly harder to kill. Not just because she's a player and can move around, but also when she's in her ultimate, she gets full health regeneration constantly, even while taking damage. She moves as fast as Lucio does under a speed boost, and she can fly in any direction, up, down, left, right, forward, back, anywhere she wants to go. So compared to the Bongo, Mercy is significant, like exponentially more difficult to kill than a little small stationary Bongo. And on top of that, Mercy's ultimate lasts for 5 seconds longer than the Bongo does if it managed to last the entire duration. Plus, on top of that, Mercy can swoop down and resurrect 3 people during her ultimate. So yeah, it's a little worse when it comes to the overall total damage amped, but for everything else that you get, the Mercy ultimate Valkyrie is just so much better than Supercharger. So, with all that in mind, isn't Orisa's Supercharger ultimate just kind of redundant and dumb and not needed anymore? Now, something you'll notice if you take a look at the ultimates in Overwatch is there's very little overlap. If one ultimate does this particular thing, then no other ultimates will do that thing. And now we have Mercy's ultimate, which basically does everything Orisa's Supercharger can, plus a ton more stuff. And because of that, a lot of people, including myself, believe that Orisa probably should get some new form of ultimate. The Supercharger shouldn't be just a damage amplification, and instead it should do something else. So of course, the most obvious and common suggestion is why don't you change it from doing damage amplification to damage resistance? But I don't really like that for two different reasons. The first is Orisa already has Fortify, which is damage resistance. So if her ultimate did the same thing, then it would make her regular ability worthless during that time period. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, damage resistance in Overwatch has a hard cap of 50%. So Fortify gives you 50%, Nano gives you 50%, and then Ironclad for Bastion gives you 35%. The reason why they had to hard cap it is because when they first introduced the new Ironclad for Bastion, if you nanoed him, it would bring his damage resistance all the way up to 85%, and it was essentially unkillable. Like, he literally could survive 2 Diva ultimates simultaneously. Like, if both of them went off right next to him, he would still survive. So Blizzard was like, okay, this is way too strong, and they had to hard cap it at 50%. So that means when Orisa is using Fortify, if you nano boost her, she doesn't get any extra benefit from it. She still has that 50% and that's it. So if Orisa's new ultimate gave Fortify or some sort of damage resistance, it wouldn't give Orisa anything once she used Fortify. Basically, it would just override it and it would be worthless for her. It would help her team, but it wouldn't help her at all, and I don't really like that kind of mentality. Like, the same thing is kind of with Ana, where she can nano boost a teammate, but she can't actually do anything to herself. I don't particularly like that. The other reason why I don't really like the give everybody Fortify ultimate is because it's more of a support ult rather than a tank ult. So if you look at the other characters in the tank category, you'll see that all of their ults are basically crowd control or zone control in some way. So we'll start with Reinhardt. His ultimate is just a big stun. That's a crowd control that knocks everybody down, they can't do anything. Then you have Zarya. Her ultimate pulls everybody into a small area so they can be focused down. They can't escape. That's very much a crowd control. Now, for the other ones, it's a little bit different. It's kind of like, rather than bringing everybody together, it spreads everybody apart. So like Winston, he has his Primal Rage, and he can knock everybody off of the cart or off of the point. And the same thing goes for Roadhog. His ultimate isn't meant to do damage, it's meant to push people away, off of a point or off of the cart or whatever, to spread out the enemy. And then Diva's ultimate is under the same kind of mentality, it's just slightly different. Basically, she drops her ultimate somewhere, and then everybody needs to scatter. Like, they're not forced to leave the area, but if they don't, then they die. So all of the other characters in the tank category have some sort of crowd control ability as their ultimate. So if you just give Orisa the Fortify thing, it doesn't really match up. So first up, I think we should probably keep the Bongo. I don't particularly like the whole droppable object for an ultimate thing, but because it's part of the character, we'll just run with it and go from there. So what other kinds of crowd control stuff could this ultimate have? Well, there's actually something that I think would go pretty good with Orisa. But first, let's run through the other stuff. So, Reinhardt has a stun. Zarya has the pull everybody in kind of ultimate. Then you have Diva, Winston, and Roadhog, who have the push everybody away kind of zoning effect thing. Mei also has a big crowd control ultimate with a freezing field. It slows everybody down and then it freezes them at the very, very end. And then even Sombra has kind of a crowd control where it locks out all of your abilities. So there's one thing that's missing among all of those, and that's Immobilize. So, this is my idea for Orisa's new ultimate. If you look at her emotes, her victory poses, and even some of the voice lines and stuff that she has, it's all about being security. It's all about kind of control. So why not give her ultimate the ability to freeze all the enemies in place? Not to lock them out in the same way that Mei's freezing field does, where they can't react, but it would be a complete immobilization. So when Orisa drops that Bongo, she says, everybody stop, you know, just like a crossing guard kind of deal. And then anybody that is in line of sight of that Bongo, who is on the enemy team, cannot move. They can still shoot, they can still use abilities, but they cannot move. All movement is completely shut down. Now, 15 seconds for that sort of thing would be way too long, so it would probably have to be chopped down to like maybe 8 or 10 seconds. So imagine if you're trying to defend or capture a point. Orisa comes in, she drops that bongo, everybody stop. Now, if you're on attacking or defending, whatever, it doesn't matter. The enemy team are not all going to be in line of sight. And that means the ones that are now in a lot of trouble because they cannot move. So your team can just focus them down. If you've got a McCree or a Hanzo or a Widow or a Soldier or something, they can get those headshots super, super easy now because the enemy team just cannot move. Now, as soon as the rest of the team comes in, as soon as they round that corner, boom, they get frozen too. And your team can now focus on them as well. Also, don't forget about possible combos. When McCree uses his ultimate, what does everybody do? They scatter. Like, you hear, it's high noon, and then the entire enemy team just vanishes in a puff of smoke. Well, imagine Orisa drops that bongo, freezes everybody, and then you hear, it's high noon. That is going to be a very bad day. And the thing is, McCree's ultimate doesn't actually synergize that well with other stuff. So like with Zarya's ultimate, for example, you don't really need to high noon because everybody is right in that kind of little small area, and you can just shoot him and kill him anyways. And with Reinhardt's ultimate, when he stuns everybody, you don't have to high noon them because they're already laying on the ground. Again, you just line up your shots and kill them. But with Orisa's new ultimate, everybody freeze, then it's high noon. The enemy team is going to have a very, very bad day. Not only that, it has a lot of defensive capabilities too. If you all of a sudden hear Genji yelling angry Japanese, you slap down that bongo, he ain't going nowhere. He's going to sit there, he can swing his sword as much as he wants, but he is not going to be able to move, he cannot go anywhere. You just stay out of arm's range and you'll be fine. So just to run through it again, the new ultimate would probably last about 8 to 10 seconds. It would still use the bongo, and if the bongo gets destroyed, then the ultimate just ends early. But any enemies who are in line of sight of the bongo would instantly stop moving. They can still shoot, and they can still use abilities as long as they're not movement abilities, but they cannot move. They are locked in place. I think my ultimate idea is much more in line with what Orisa actually is as a character. A defender, a protector, someone who provides security to the teammates and enforces control over an area, as opposed to simply just giving a kind of generic damage boost to everybody that's in line of sight. So what do you guys think about this? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Would you like to see something else? Let me know down in the comment section. Also, don't forget to check out my Discord server. Follow me on Twitter. The links for that stuff is down below. Thanks for watching. Remember, always blame the controller because it's never your fault. Also, special thanks to all my Patreon supporters for helping to make this all possible. If you'd like to see what kind of cool rewards you can get for supporting the channel, check the links on screen and down below.